Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined by the amazing Daniel. Dan, how you doing today, man?
Hey man, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, it's amazing to have you here. We've been able to work together before this, and when we worked together, I knew that I wanted to have you a part of the channel. So,
Oh, thanks, dude.
before we talk about why you're here, though, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. You became a horror fan when your dad showed you the Universal monster films at a young age. You grew up that obsessed monster kid we all knew in school, the cool kid, as we like to say, um, even though back then it was not the cool kid thing to do. But you started the Cobwebs podcast in June of 2019, and it was created to discuss classic gothic horror films, Universal monsters, the Hammer horror, Vincent Price, things of that nature. And then the channel on YouTube began in March 2021, but you really started to find your groove and committing to that in 2022. So, do you still do the podcast, or is it just the YouTube channel now?
It's just the YouTube channel. I did them both for quite a while, and then like it just became too hard to juggle, and the YouTube channel took off a lot more than the podcast ever did. So I thought, well, this is where my future is. So I just pivoted over.
Well, and you're pretty, so that didn't hurt anything.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna tell my wife you said that.
Never knocking on my door tonight, like, listen, you son of a bitch. But no, you love doing the YouTube now, and not only do you love being on YouTube, but all the collaborations that you've done as well. Like I said, that's how you and I met and connected, and now your sole focus on the channel is exploring the crypts of horror film with rankings, reviews, and physical media discussions. So, what made you decide? I want to do the podcast, but I also want to do the YouTube channel. What made you decide to make that jump over to YouTube?
I think it was just wanting to talk more about Blu-rays and like physical media collecting. And just because I liked watching like physical media collectors on YouTube and like, showing their Blu-rays and stuff like that. And I think I just wanted to try that a little more. But I think I made around 10 videos and I just kind of phased out. And like, I don't really remember any kind of decision of like, I'm going to quit YouTube. I just kind of, I don't know, forgot about it or something, just moved on. And it was like November of 2022 when I thought, well, I'll give it another try. And I posted a video randomly. Well, not too randomly. It was November. I posted a video of my top 10 like film noir movies
Yeah.
because it was November. And that video like exploded and it got like 10,000 views or something real quick. And I was like, what? What happened? Like I'd been away from this platform for so long. And that kind of was like the kickstart to like keep me going. I've joked before that like I think maybe YouTube will do that to channels. They'll just send one out there like this guy just needs a kickstart, and if we do this, then he'll keep going and keep creating stuff for us.
Right.
So maybe that's what happened. But yeah, and it's been like steadily growing ever since, and it's been like a wild ride, honestly, and I've been having a blast with it.
Dude, I'm super proud of you because like I see the hard work that you do, and you guys can check out the hard work he does too by subscribing to the channel. Those links are right down in the description, so you don't have to go far. So please make sure you're going and subscribing to our friend over at the Cobwebs channel. I promise you're not going to regret it. And follow him on social media as well. Those links are in the description. So in order to do the channel and in order to talk about all these amazing things in horror that you like to talk about, horror had to start for you somewhere. So now, Daniel, I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Daniel, your first horror movie was
Dracula from 1931, starring Bela Lugosi. I actually brought my VHS tape with me.
that is so dope. And I'm so sorry, everybody, for my terrible Dracula impression. I mean, look at the face Belle is making on that cover right now. Like, you son of a beach.
He looks mad.
So, what a great way to start. Because without Universal, I don't think we have our Mount Rushmore of horror icons now with, Freddy, Jason, Michael, Leatherface, Chucky. I don't think those exist without the jumpstart of our Universal monsters. So Dracula starting off, I know we talked about how you started with your dad, him showing you the Universal monster films, but do you remember about how old you were when you had saw Dracula for the first time?
No, I was really young because honestly, like the Universal monsters aren't just my first memories with horror movies. They're really my first memories with movies.
Yeah.
The first thing I can really remember is watching Universal Monsters. I mean, my mom tells me when I was one, I watched Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs over and over again, but I don't really remember that. But some people can say that movie's scary, so that could be my first horror movie.
Mhm.
But yeah, he was obsessed with Universal Monsters when he was a kid, so he introduced those to us. And That's the first, and I can't tell you for sure that Dracula was the first one, but I can tell you it was the one I was the most obsessed with as a kid. I was always a Dracula kid first and foremost, and I was
Mhm.
Dracula for most Halloweens growing up. I was like Dracula over and over again.
Yeah.
So that is what I consider my first horror movie, even though like it really is like the universal monsters as a whole. And when I was a kid, and I think this was one reason I'm so obsessed with horror now, is I was terrified of horror. Like I couldn't handle like anything slightly more modern than the Universal monsters. Like that was my comfort spot, and then everything else I was just way too scared of, but fascinated by, but too scared of.
Right. And it's funny because sometimes, like you talk about how this is your first memory, and that's what I love about horror is it can be a comfort to us. And we watch you put on Dracula now and you think about being with your dad and spending the time with your dad and watching, the Universal monsters and that's core memories that you're always going to be able to have of you and your father together. And that's a special thing. It's a very special thing for our first memories to be revolved around our family and horror. Like that's an incredible, incredible thing. So, like I said, I know you were very, very young watching with your father, but do you remember which scene it was that affected you the most?
I think like I mean the scene that I think is the best scene in the movie that I always think of is when Renfield first shows up at the castle. Renfield played amazingly by Dwight Fry. Shows up and it is like the greatest gothic atmosphere I think that's ever been put on screen in this insane castle with cobwebs all around. You see where I get my name. And Dracula slowly descending down the stairs holding a candelabra full of candles and saying, I bid you welcome. And it's like the most iconic moment
I bid you welcome.
of horror. Like, it's like that and It's Alive from Frankenstein, like the oldest, most iconic stuff. And yeah, I mean, that's just been burned into my memory forever. And I've been watching this movie over and over again ever since, because it's not a movie I left behind in childhood. It's a movie I'm still very into to this day.
Mhm. Well, I mean, like I said, a lot of the things that we appreciate, like I said, now would not exist without Dracula, without Frankenstein or the Wolfman or Creature from the Black Lagoon. A lot of the stuff that we love and enjoy started with them. They were the influence behind those. And Bela Lugosi, especially, was able to pull off Dracula like almost no one else. I love, the Universal Bella. I love the Universal Dracula. I love the Hammer films. I love that gothic aesthetic that comes with the Hammer films as well. So, we talked about which scene affected you the most from Dracula, but what would you say your favorite scene from that film is?
It is that, but another in the spirit of shouting out something else, I love the very opening of the movie that's actually before that, when Renfield first shows up at the village in Transylvania. And this is like a recurring thing in a lot of Gothic vampire movies that I love, when the outsider shows up at the small little Transylvanian village and says, like, oh, I'm going up to Castle Dracula. And everybody's like, Dracula, you do not go up there. And it's that's the just kind of spooky time vibes that I crave, especially this time of year. I just love it.
And like that's even been parodied in like Futurama, you know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Or if you look at the 90s version with Keanu, like, I'm going up to Castle Dracula. I'm Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. What I love about like in the Futurama one, like Bender's like, I'm going to that castle, and then it shows the guy, the driver of the hearse, and he's like,
I will go this far and no further.
I haven't seen that. That's great.
it's so funny. So like I said, and with Dracula especially, there's been a lot of different versions of this being told throughout time. What would you say your favorite iteration of Dracula is?
Yeah, it's actually not this. I mean, as much as I love it, it's so important to my childhood. I don't think it's the best that the story's been done. Like, it's not faithful to the book at all.
Mhm.
And it's more so based on a play, not necessarily on the book. So a lot of people accuse it of being stagey a lot, and it is because it's a play, really, that they happen to film. Um, but there are two that I do put at the top. I do absolutely adore the Coppola version from 1992. Keanu Reeves and all. Like, I know everybody points to Keanu Reeves. This is why this movie's bad, but I don't care. I just love that movie. And I really love the first Hammer Dracula film, Horror of Dracula, Christopher Lee. Like, those two are the peak of Dracula to me.
Mhm. And Christopher Lee was another great Dracula. When you
Oh,
have the bloodshot eyes, that zoom in on his bloodshot eyes, and Oh, it's just so fucking fantastic, man. I love it so much. So usually when we talk about a film, I ask what your favorite in the franchise is. It's kind of hard to do that with Dracula because it's not so much of a franchise as it is just different remakes and retellings of the same story. But what I will ask, what Universal monster was your favorite of the bunch?
Well, growing up, it was Dracula, but now it's the Wolfman. And now the Wolfman is my favorite of the Universal Monsters movies because as much as I love the Universal Monsters films, I think one issue they do have is usually the monster is awesome, is fantastic, but they often have kind of boring protagonists.
Mhm.
But the Wolfman is the one where the monster is the protagonist. You know, it's Larry Talbot turning into the Wolfman. And I love Lon Chaney Jr. as Larry Talbot so much. Like I just feel for him, sympathize with him so deeply. So like that's I think the best movie that ever came out of the Universal Monsters films. And it's got this amazing score. Another thing about Dracula is it's like really early talkie. Like it's one of the first movies that had dialogue.
Right.
So there's no score in that movie. There's no music. But then the Wolfman is 10 years later, so it's got this incredible score that's so good that Universal would use it over and over again for a bunch of their churn and burn sequels. Like if you watch any of the Mummy sequels, they all have the score for the Wolfman.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
yeah, and the makeup is just incredible. Like I just love that movie so much.
So are you excited for the Lee Winnell retelling?
I am. I'm skeptical about it, but not like in an angry or upset way, because I think we've already gotten a great Wolfman remake, which is the one with Benicio del Toro. I think that's a great movie, especially if you watch the director's cut. And so I kind of already have my Great Wolfman remake. So if this one's great, that's cool. If it's not, I'm fine with that. I do think Lee Winnell is a very good director. So I think he'll pull off a good movie. I just don't expect it to be a good Wolfman movie because, for one thing, we've kind of seen the design, at least we think, from footage taken at Halloween Horror Nights because they revealed at least a Wolfman from that movie. I don't know if there's going to be a better Wolfman, but the design they
There
revealed,
fucking better be a better Wolfman than what I saw. You
yeah,
talking when the guy was walking back and forth in front of his
yeah,
sign? Yeah, you
don't
better have
like it.
something better than that, man.
Do not like it. And Lee Winnell kind of has a history with this because he made an Invisible Man movie, which is very good,
Yeah,
but it's really nothing like The Invisible Man. And it's not
right.
really satisfying as an Invisible Man movie. It's more satisfying as a throwback to 90s thrillers, I think, domestic thrillers. And it's a good movie, but I think like maybe this is his thing. Like he's going to make Universal Monsters movies that are something totally different. I think it'll be good. I don't think I'm going to be satisfied as a Wolfman fan, but I'm kind of okay with that.
Which, and that's a very fair point to make. You know, he's going to take this movie and make it his own, which is fine. And like I said, it's not like someone's going to come into your house and take your Wolfman copy and be like, you can never watch this again. You can only
Yeah.
watch the Lee Winnell one from now on. So, um, unfortunately, Sledgehammer Horror is in the middle of a move right now, guys. So Ghostface couldn't make it here tonight. But, you know, as always, right now, I always like to ask, usually Ghostface does, but I do have his image he is allowing me to use. What's your favorite scary movie, Daniel? Oh, shit, I can't even use his image. I'm trying. Ghostface, I'm trying, buddy.
You kind of became a ghost. You disappeared.
Right.
And I was kind of scared.
So we'll do that. I will be Ghost. What's your favorite scary movie, Daniel?
You know what's funny? It is like kind of an 80s update on the Dracula story, but it's Fright Night from 1985.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite movie. And I didn't even see that as a kid. I saw it stumbling across it on Netflix maybe like 10-ish years ago and watched it with zero expectations and was like, oh my God, this is like the most fun movie I've ever seen in my life. And to this day, like it's the movie I show people the most. It's never disappointed. Everybody always has a blast with it.
Yeah.
I love to rewatch that movie over and over again. I mean, Chris Sarandon, Roddy McDowell, that movie has incredible atmosphere, and it's like an 80s teen movie at the same time, which I love 80s teen movies. So that's a perfect movie for me.
Evil Ed, bro.
His dinner's in the oven. Oh, you're so cool, Brewster.
Like,
I'm pro Evil Ed. I know he's a sticking point for people, but I like Evil Ed.
I love Evil Ed, man.
Yes.
Like, I was Evil Ed in high school, bro.
Yeah.
So yeah, we talked about your first horror movie and your favorite horror movie, man. But before I let you go, we always bounce back to the same question. We're going to go back to Dracula, and I think I know the answer, but my script tells me I have to ask. We're going to rank this movie on a skull count. Now, Daniel, we're not ranking this movie on acting, production, lack of score, you know, nothing like that. We're not being critics. what we're doing is ranking this movie on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Daniel, what would your ranking of Dracula be?
Oh man, I mean, it has to be 5 skulls because, like, to this day, I am obsessed with horror, but also gothic horror, vampires. Dracula is my favorite fictional character of all time, like across all of media, movies, books, and such like that. I'm Dracula obsessed. I think you put Dracula in a room with any horror icons, and Dracula will rule them all. Like, he's just the king of all things spooky. Um, so yeah, I mean, this movie, like, it meant everything to me as a kid. I watched it over and over again on VHS. I had action figures of him. Um, I was him for Halloween over and over again. And to this day, like, classic monster movies is the thing my dad and I bond over the
Sure.
most. So just love this stuff.
Hell yeah, man. So I know I said it at the beginning, guys, but we're at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, make sure you're subscribing to the channel. Man, make sure you're following Daniel on social media. Those links are all down in the description. So you don't have to go far. Just give those a click and make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, hitting that notification bell, and hitting those thumbs up buttons, because it helps to build these YouTube channels so much more than you know, trying to get us into those algorithms. So, Daniel, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everyone else, like I said, if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.